It's currently 4 in the morning, and I think the thing that pisses me off the most is that in this game they felt like not only having Instagram, but also hashtags. That's what this game is now. I am so fucking tired right now. I'm just like completely out of it. Usually I don't like to stay up so late, mostly because of how it fucks up like every aspect of my like existence. Not only do I end up staying up like way longer than I need to, but if I stay up really late, what ends up happening is that I also wake up really late, which is not a fun thing because sometimes I'll sleep for 12 hours. And let's take a little estimation. Let's say I fucking stay up until 6 and I sleep for 12 hours. I don't wake up until 6 p.m. and my day is gone. Um, it's not fun. It sucks. It drains the life out of you. Um, Immediately get into something. Uh, I wouldn't say it's the worst thing though, at least, because for the very least, I just enjoy the fact that, you know, I could take it at my own leisure. Starting off strong. I can take everything at my own leisure. A lot of it is just, going from building to building and just relaxing, taking it at my own pace, and most importantly, I can just talk. What really lets me work through a lot of thoughts sometimes, but I also sometimes get to a point where I'm just like so tired that I'm basically just thinking and thinking, thinking. I genuinely need sleep right now, but it doesn't really matter. Right now, we're just gonna find get through some of this again. Ooh, okay. Yeah. What was I thinking about? Really lost our train of thought right now. I'd rather just spam the X button. That's basically just how you play this game. It's just spam X to win. Because what else would you do? And the most reliable command is X. Lovely. There's a better way to win the game than spamming X. Honestly, that's the fucking motto for Modern Warfare. One of the more interesting aspects about working alone, because obviously, being by yourself and not having to talk to other people, that's pretty fucking chill, I'd say. One of my biggest problems with, like, being around other people is, like, knowing how I should interact. I don't know, from a young age, I've always been this kind of person who never really knew how to, like, socialize or even just how to act in front of other people. One of the worst things for me was when I basically realized I was an outcast and people thought I was weird. I lived in this sort of like oblivion for a long time because I didn't really realize just how people had genuinely felt about me. I didn't really know how people felt about me, what they thought about me, and then when I did, I was like, oh. And ever since then, I just kind of like try to just stay out of people's way and just hope that people never really try and figure me out, I guess. Today I was with my supervisors because I'm getting a new supervisor because no supervisor seems to want to fucking stay. And basically, I had to like show this new supervisor, this is like the buildings, this is what you do, blah 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 blah. Good sanity. That was all fine and whatever. But what's interesting is that I finally brought up like I already did that before with like the first supervisor, but like the second time around, I was like, oh, I should bring up this whole fact that if you're lucky, you might be a raccoon. I don't know. I've always been nervous around people. I don't think I've ever like. There's only like one time where I've just had like this simple kind of interaction. Because I can say pretty definitively that when I talk to people, it's just always nervous. It's always just me being unsure about what I should say, how I should say things, all that stuff. The only time I was never like that was just in one event. There's one girl I had met and I was in friends with. But the way we had met was basically we were at this place. It's called UAY. And the general idea of it is that it's where, you know, teenagers can go to hang out. You know, it's sort of like a quote-unquote safe space, I'd say. That's sort of how I would define it, I guess. And basically, I was hanging out there with my friends, and then I just kind of noticed this one girl just kind of like sitting by herself. I didn't really pay too much attention to her, but then it was like, the reason all this fighting's gone. Okay, I didn't really think too much about it, but it was like 2 hours later. I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, I don't remember. But, you know, a good amount of time later, I still see her sitting there by herself, just looking at her phone. And I don't know, maybe I was feeling in a good mood, but I decided, you know what, I'm gonna ask her, you know, what's up? You know, like, why are you sitting by yourself? You know, why aren't you like hanging out together? Why aren't you talking to anybody? And I went over, I was just like, hey, hi. I basically introduced myself. I asked her, you know, like I've noticed that you've just basically been by yourself this whole time. She was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to like hang out with some friends, but they didn't show up, and I was like, oh, that sucks. You know, I was like, if you want to, you know, talk to me and shit. Actually, I don't know how the conversation went, but I do remember, I didn't really think too much about it. It was so weird because I never. It was one of the weirdest things about like how I interacted with her because, you know, up until this point in my life, the way I generally interacted with people is that I would have something to sort of like linchpin a conversation. It would be like, hey, you and I are currently in this location, or you and I are interested in this thing. Clearly, because we're at this location, blah blah blah. Or we're playing this similar game. So that would be how like conversations would go. You know, like, oh, you know, very easy to start a conversation when you have like at least something to relate to. But this is a situation where this was someone who had a complete blank slate. You know, there was absolutely nothing I could go off of other than we were in the same location. But there was no way of like gauging, you know, like what possible things could we possibly have in common. But I just kind of like, you know, I went with it. You know, I just kind of talked to her, I chatted with her, and I was just like, because at the time the only way I could get home was on a bus, right? So I was just like, oh, you know, I'll ask her like how she's gonna get home because she takes the bus, and like, oh, you know, maybe I could also take a bus with her. And she's like, oh, I'm gonna get picked up at over here in this area. I'm like, oh, you know, if you want, I can like walk with you and just chat, you know, so while you're waiting. And that's ultimately what we ended up doing. And it was so weird because, you know, every time I fucking look back on it, it was just like, how was I like this? You know, how did I end up in an interaction like this? You know, it sounds so weird to say, but for me, you know, just the thought of like having a normal conversation with somebody just out of the blue, just seems so crazy. Just feeling like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Conversation. Yeah. That's weird. For the most part, whenever I made friends, it was always sort of like friends of friends or like circumstances. I don't make a lot of friends nowadays, but at one point I did try to make friends. I remember the first friends I ever like quote unquote made, because more often than not it was just like I happened to be interacting with them, I happened to be talking with them, so like that's sort of like how we ended up talking and all that stuff. But with the first friends I ever made, I remember it was in middle school. It was the first day of middle school, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know who to hang out with. Blah blah blah. And basically, I thought to myself like, okay, the way to survive school is by making friends. Like life was a goddamn Nickelodeon sitcom. Obviously, it wasn't. It didn't make much sense to think like that. But I was like, I need to make friends. So I ended up just, oh my god, I hate this. So I ended up just like going around, and just, well, I didn't go around. What am I talking about? I'm tired of shit. I just remember, I got to lunch, right? You know, like the first day of middle school, I'm going through all my classes, you know,
Hope
all
we
this
find
and
some
so.
ingredients around here.
Find some ingredients around here. It's so much more different than middle school, and I was just like, oh, this was so weird, and I don't know really what to do, what to think, and I went to lunch, and it's like, really the only person who I knew was my cousin, and we didn't really plan anything out, so it wasn't like he and I, oh god, I hate that. Ooh, you should look for food. Oh really? I never fucking noticed. It's not like it was the mission at all. Basically, I was just like, the only person I know is my cousin, and I don't know where my cousin is, so I don't know what I should do. So of course,
Well, I'm starting to get hungry.
Basically,
We can't leave. Little Chef still needs our help.
God, it's so annoying when they talk. There used to be a crack on the wall here. Oh my god. Basically, the only person I knew was my cousin. I didn't know where he was. I had no way of like being like, hey, what lunch do you have? Because I can't remember how it was. I think it was, what system did they have? I can't remember. Middle school was weird. I don't even remember high school. It's been like 2 years, and I've already like blanked out on most of what happened in high school. But basically, I didn't have anyone to sit with, so I just kind of went to the end of the table, and because what they did is that you had to like wait for your table before you could go, right? That's not like how it is in high school, because in high school it was just like, oh, just go and grab your food, and you would either get there early, so you wouldn't have to wait for so long, or you would get there, or you just grab it once like all the lines are done, right? Because most people don't really like standing around and doing nothing but and basically,
Let's see.
there were this group of girls at the other side of the table, and I just remember one of them just like looked over at me and was just like, oh my god, you look so lonely. She was like, oh, you look so sad and lonely. Which when I think back on it, it's just like, huh, that is okay. But once I got my food, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna try talking to them. I'm gonna see if they want to be friends. So that's what I did. I talked to them, and I ended up being friends with them. I also learned that this was kind of partially what made me kind of depressed in life, is that I realized that like I didn't really make friends that day. I made acquaintances. Like they were just people I hung out with at school, and that was really it. There wasn't a lot of like sense of the friendship. It didn't. One of the descriptions one of the girls said to me, it always stuck to me, was she said, I'm like a lost puppy, right? And, just as a sentence, it's like, oh, it's whatever. But the reality of what it sort of meant for me, especially me as a person, was that the reason I followed people was because nobody really followed me, I hung out around people. People let me hang out with them. I was never like, nobody ever said like, oh hey, you want to hang out, or oh hey, you wanna come over, And like obviously, being in a group of girls, it limits the amount of interactions you can have, especially since like that's when fucking puberty happens. So like, the thought of like hanging out with girls isn't like, oh hey, we're just hanging out. It's also like, oh, it's a guy you're hanging out with. God.
Let's see.
But more importantly, I just felt like I don't know. There's like this Robin Williams quote that I can't remember precisely, but something along the lines of like, there's nothing more lonely, or like, I don't know. It's something along the lines of nothing feels worse than feeling alone when you're surrounded by people, which I think is a lovely sentiment. You know, it kind of expresses kind of sort of like how you can have friends, you can have, you know, people that you hang out with, but it doesn't really mean a lot overall if you still feel like you don't really have someone there. You know, I never really felt like I had like an actual close friend. I had people I hung out with, I had people who I would talk to, but I never really had someone who I would like go home and hang out with, who I would have like meaningful conversations with, you know. Yay, shooting star. Obviously, it isn't really that big of a deal, but I'm out of potions. I am fresh out of potions. Okay, so it's sort of shifting stuff around. See, I like the look of the classic King key, but it's impractical since the King key kinda sucks. Until I get it upgraded. Okay, let's get. Always go for the power. Like, why would you want to be like, oh yeah, you know what I want to do? I want to be really tanky. When a good rule of thumb is if everything's dead, nothing can hurt you. It is a fact. That's funny to me. Flame core, water core, chef puff, statue for kids. Those are easy to get. Keyblade Forge. Yes, let's upgrade Kingdom Key so I can actually use him and feel proud of myself. And I was going to upgrade Shooting Star because it's the newest one. Can't upgrade Midnight Blue because we're out of fluoride, because I used it to get the Kingdom Key to a better state just so I could use it to spite myself. I don't know why I did this to myself. I didn't need to. I didn't need to do this. I didn't need to be like, oh, you know what I need to do? I need to make it so that way I can have a better Keyblade by focusing on the weaker one. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Basically, the other one was already better by default. So if I basically focus, like imagine one was $1 and the other was $2, and then I increased their value by $5 each. Of course, the one that was $2 is now going to be $6 in comparison, $7 in comparison to the one that is $6. But I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I wanted the $6. That probably made no sense. Who fucking cares? I think one of the my least favorite aspects of this game is the cooking, and that's mostly just because of the fact that it honestly kind of sucks. It's not fun. Like it's cute and all, but it's like the worst part about it is just the way that it works. And how it's generally like something you kind of have to like actually put time and effort into just to like actually do. Ooh. Sensitivity. 14 AP, okay. Shadow anklet. Okay. The dark anklet. Oh yeah, we can make AP boost. But we have 4 in stock, we can just fucking spam that up.
Better
Okay.
put this in the mail.
Oh yeah. I remember that system. The thing about this game, and what I remember from it, is that there is a thing called the Ultima weapon, which is literally the best weapon in the game. In this game, it's a little bit more arguable, and that's mostly just because in this game, because of the fact that you can upgrade so many of the other weapons, the Ultima weapon actually becomes, it's not impractical, but it's no longer like it no longer just like clearly beats everything else. Because in past games it was just like the Ultima weapon was like everything else is like, you know, level 10, and the Ultima weapon is like level 13. You know, this is like you really couldn't do much better. I think in Kingdom Hearts 2 there was like a Keyblade that had like better magic, but you were basically better off using the Ultima weapon regardless. All that is to say that the Ultima weapon in this game is not bad, but okay, we can use Cure now, so we don't really need to have that, and we have Blizzard, so now we can set that. Is that how I want things to be? I want to switch Fire and Blizzard. Okay. I'm gonna have shortcut to be potions and meow balloons. I should set that to that. I should set that to this. No, I shouldn't. Okay. Yeah. And the reason I fucking have it rolling through my head about all that is because I'm also thinking like, oh dear God, the last thing I want to do is go through the Ultima weapon grind again, because I don't remember how much time I spent into it. All I remember is that just thinking about it makes me not happy. So suffice to say, I'm not going to put much dedication into that particular endeavor, at least in the sense of I'm probably just going to expert mean? I can't have an intro accessory. So what does expert mean? VP bonus I have is 20. Wait, no. What? Oh, it gives me a massive. Oh shit! This is actually better. Nothing compares to this. Nothing compares to this. This is fantastic, and I love it. This one is much better. Okay. I think what makes this game so weird to like try and organize everything is just the fact that like everything fundamentally just has this it has this like level of, oh, look at all these things that you can change and modify and improve, and I also have to look at it thinking like I don't entirely know what I'm changing. Okay, Fusion Flash. MP safety. Disables recharging when MP runs out. Only Cure Magic and Link commands will trigger a recharge. I will set that just because if I don't even know what this is, but I guess I set it since I have the space for it. Not auto finish for, what was I saying? Let's just put up some of these things because we can. Might as well have it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There should be the Kingdom Key. This is shooting star. Okay. Don't kill me, please. Is there? Can I? Let me up this. Honestly, one of my favorite aspects about this game is just being able to explore. It's honestly a lot of fun.
It's a silent film, but the music sure is pretty.
I never talked about my work, or just how fucking weird it is to work by myself. I'm a very paranoid individual. You know, I'm the kind of person who, one of the reasons I don't like being around other people is that I don't know, you know, what they're doing, what they're going to do, especially the context. you know, it's the whole like if people aren't usually there and then there is somebody, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Right? It's like it really shouldn't, but it does. Just does, and because of that, I end up basically feeling on edge a lot whenever I'm basically by myself, which I have to be by myself a lot because of the fact that my work is literally just me by myself, never talking to another living soul. Um, but what makes it so unnerving is that I'm also someone who believes in ghosts, and the problem with that is that when you believe in ghosts and you watch these videos,
I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye.
No one likes you, Curry. No. When you work by yourself and you believe in ghosts and you watch ghost footage of like like weird things in old houses, it becomes this like really unsettling sort of feeling when you're in these houses by yourself, because it's not just, oh, I'm in a house, it's that I'm in a house by myself and there's a second floor, right? So that means if at any point I hear a noise coming from upstairs, I am immediately put off. I feel immediately uncomfortable when I hear, like noises coming from outside. Because to me, that just feels like that should not be happening. Wait, please, mother. Alright, put a marker here, and we're gonna mark from here. Because I think that this is closer. Let's change to... Look at the blue. The fucking... Hold on. Ghost blocky fourth, ghost blocky left. What is this? Okay. Begin voyage. One of the things that I always like psych myself out about is the fact that I just always imagine that I'm gonna look upstairs and there's gonna be somebody upstairs. And that is horrifying to me. Like, I know it's entirely unrealistic, but I believe in my head I'm going to see a face, and that is basically this fucking kind of that sounds 100% things. Basically, I get so nervous because my head just immediately goes that, this feels weird, that I'm by myself, and that there's barely anything. So I start to, like, irrationalize little noises. Like, I will literally just hear a non-weird noise. Something like, you can now work in this basically. I'll hear something that sounds like, oh, it's... I'll hear something that sounds like, like the floorboards creaking, right? And, normally in your head you would think, like, oh, it's probably just, normal... Fucking hell. Oh, retry? Okay. You'll probably think it's like, oh, it's just normal noises that you hear in a house. Because it's an old house, Of course you're gonna hear noises that sound like something's moving, because surprise, surprise, holy shit. Cause surprise, surprise, not everything is just gonna be, as sturdy as you would expect. I wanna tell a story. I really wish I posted this story on Reddit at some point. Because there's YouTube channel Lunathonic that's run by Markiplier, and Ethan, and they did this thing where they're just like, oh, tell us your scariest stories, your scariest true stories, and I wish I took up that opportunity because I didn't. because I basically just, I don't know. I should have told my scary story. Because it's fucking freaky, and I always feel unsettled about it. I am somewhat uncertain about there being a ghost in my house. I say uncertain because I can't say it for sure. And when I say it, I just feel like I'm just like this fucking crazy believer that's just like, oh, I heard something. So clearly there's a ghost in my house, you know, like, proof? I heard something. I heard something. I've had like a couple occasions, you know, things like the door opening, but you know, maybe that's not shuffling. Maybe it's just the fact that like my door for some reason just naturally opens by itself, like the hinges naturally like extend, which to me is weird because there's no springs to it. It's just a wooden door with metal hinges. But what was weird was one night I was awake. I don't remember it very much. It was recent, but I don't remember very much. And what happened was I heard what sounded like shuffling, right? Like somebody was like shuffling their legs. And normally I wouldn't have thought too much about it, right? Because what I did think was that it's probably just somebody, you know, using the bathroom. In my head, I thought, oh, it's probably my little brother. So I cry out. I'm like, Angel. And to my surprise, there was no response. Right? You know, because I didn't just hear, you know, shuffling. I also heard like what sounded like, you know, somebody moving the door slightly. So, you know, that's sort of how I went through that. You know, it sounded like somebody's walking around, and it sounded like the door moved around as well. So it seems pretty rational to say, for the most part, that, you know, there's probably somebody in the house, you know? That's all of that. Oh. I never did this. I don't know if this is new, but I love that. Where was I at? Oh, holy shit. Basically, I started hearing some noises, right? And what I ended up doing was I cried out his name. There was no response. You know, like the noises weren't just like, oh, maybe it was something. It was very much like this was a noise that some like living creature had to make, right? And not just like a bee, not why I say bee, not just, you know, a fly, not just a moth. Like this basically only could have been made by, you know, like a person or like a big animal, right? And the thing is, the dogs were almost 100% asleep. Because I don't remember for sure if the dog, the smaller chihuahuas in my room, especially would make a lot of sense if it was a chihuahua. I don't know. It was just a weird. Actually, it wouldn't be the chihuahua because I know what the chihuahua sounds like. Whenever she's walking, it's like you can hear her nails tapping on the. Do you have something for it? No, it's tiling. I don't even know what it's called. It's not even really tiling. It's kind of like. I love it. It's just whacking people with this massive thing. But that's not really my major ghost story. No, my major ghost story is not even ghost story. It's just a creepy story because I don't want to say it's a ghost. I don't want to say it was paranormal. My head immediately has like a very simple answer, but even then, I feel like, you know, maybe there's something deeper about this that, you know, maybe I don't know, that I haven't really figured out. Basically, one day I was in my room, and the very distinct thing about it was the fact that I don't remember where I was, but I basically remembered that I was essentially alone. Like, I remember I sort of worked it through in my head that I was by myself. I got home and I was like, oh, there's probably a trip right now, right? And, you know, I kind of pieced that together because I kind of like, you know, I looked around and I was just like, oh, is anyone home? Or am I just by myself? And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm by myself. That's cool. Whatever, I don't care. So, basically, I'm by myself and I'm just playing video games. And at this time, I don't think I had internet. Or maybe I did, I don't really remember, it doesn't really matter. But I was playing video games. You know, I was just relaxing, enjoying myself. And I usually watch YouTube videos whilst I'm playing video games, right? You know, like a normal human being. And basically, I was doing that for, you know, some time. And oh yeah, this is... Alright, fuck that up. Basically, you know, I was playing video games and I was watching YouTube videos, and at one point, I basically, I was in a moment where I was not in a game, so I didn't have, like, you know, gameplay to, like, listen to, and I also was looking for a new video to play, right? So I was in this moment where I was like, I wasn't playing the game, and I wasn't playing the game, and I didn't have a video playing. So everything was fine, right? And that's when I started hearing the sound of like food. And you know, my head did not go to like, oh, that's creepy. My head that was like, oh, it's probably my little brother. He's probably just in his room sleeping, you know? And it's just like, which is weird, because I'm pretty sure, like, I looked in his room, and I didn't see him. But I was just like, oh, no, like, because it was dark. You know, I mean, it was dark, you know, maybe I just didn't notice. It's not that big of a deal. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna, it doesn't really matter, I'll just, I didn't think too much about it. For some reason I kind of thought. I didn't think too much about it, and I was just like, oh, whatever, you know, it turns out my little brother's here, whatevs. And so I basically was just like, you know, I was going about my day, going about my gaming, and I was doing that, and then that's when I heard Ratchet, right? So it was sort of like, it was the end of the lobby, and I still had a video playing, right? But this time I could hear it. Now, the thing is, our rooms aren't, like, far apart, but they're not next to each other, right? So it's not like I'm hearing these noises through the wall, right? You know, the only noises were, like, what was immediately in front of me, and, of course, those noises were also what were happening. So, it genuinely made me feel weird, because I just felt like, okay, why am I hearing this? You know, why am I hearing scratching? That doesn't seem right. So I was then just like, okay, well, I'm hearing scratching, and I feel like I shouldn't be hearing scratching. So I go over to check, you know, just feel like, you know, what's going on? What's happening? So I go over to my little brother's room, and I take a peek inside. And I turn the lights on, and all I hear is scratching, right? It just sounds, it just sounds like claws on wood, right? Like, it's not just like them, like, you know, scratching at it, it sounds like it's scraping into the wood. And I'm just thinking, this does not sound right. Because this should not be, you know, this is not what I should be hearing, you know. Presumably my little brother isn't home, so I don't understand why I'm hearing what is presumably my little brother, or at least something coming from my little brother. Go over, I check, there's scratching, and that's good. So I decide, you know what, I'm going to, I'm going to, you know, do a little exploration. It took a lot to fucking will myself to that point, because my headspace was more of like, this is very unsettling, and I don't know if I feel very comfortable. So I literally went outside and was just like, okay, it's a big deal. It's fine. It's just something weird and ominous and unsettling going on, but it's not a big deal, you know. So I was just gonna be like, hey, you know, it's fine. You know, we can just pretend like this is a thing that's happening, and then whatever. Eventually, I will myself to the point where I'm able to get inside of the room, right? I sort of prepare myself. You know, I fucking I fucking arm myself in case something decides to jump out at me. And ultimately, what I end up doing is I step into the room, right? Which is like, you know, yeah, well, it's no big deal. Just stepping in the room. There's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. Up until this point, I've been hearing scratching. I step outside, I come back inside, the scratching is still going. I even at one point like tried stomping on the ground, being like, okay, you know what, maybe it's just a cat. Maybe it's just a cat that's just under, you know, the house. This isn't weird because we did it of course. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stomp on the ground, see if that, you know, scares it off. It didn't. I stomp on the ground and just scratching kept going. So I go outside, I come back inside, it's still going, and I said, okay, you know, this is it. I'm just gonna go inside. Whatever happens. I'm gonna fucking just gonna go at it, and you know, I'm gonna just take whatever comes my way. So that's what I do. I end up leaving, and I end up leaving this place and going to Andy's house. It's the right next door. I end up going inside, and I look around the bed. There's nothing there, right? And I basically, you know, kind of like try and process everything that's going on, and in that, and that's when I realized something. I realized the noise has stopped, and I'll be perfectly honest, that unsettled me. Something about up until this point there being this scratching, the fact that I heard like a very audible breathing, and then I heard, you know, pretty solid scratching that didn't seem too dissuaded by me stomping on the floor, and now it's just inexplicably done. You know, maybe I could just like write it off as like, you know, it just stopped, but it seems a little weird that it was like, you know, I stomped. It's still there, but then I stomp and it's there, but then I step into the room and it's gone. Seems a bit weird, you know? So, I then decide to get the fuck out of there. I don't know. That was really all that ever happened in that. The only time I ever heard something else weird was, one time I was like moving stuff around my room, and I just remember, I just hear like scratching in the walls. You know, it was kind of reminiscent to what I heard that one time. And I normally wouldn't think too much about it, but the reason it was sort of weird was like, that's odd. And it's odd because the only thing on the other side of this wall is a giant bookcase. So if theoretically somebody was fucking with me, they would literally have to have moved the bookcase. And like I said, it's a giant fucking bookcase. Like, I would say that this is at least, I'm gonna say anywhere from like 600 to 700 pounds. Maybe that's an exaggeration. It's probably more like 500 pounds. But it is big and it has a lot of money, so it is not easy to make. But yeah, I ended up hearing that one time. I don't know. I very much in the sort of mindset that is probably just a cat, maybe a rat. But it doesn't really change the fact that, you know, it feels very unsettling just to be in that position. Just fucking shooting rockets at the ground. I'll get over here so I can shoot you, and then finish. Oh, come on! That's fine. Thunder. Ooh, this is a cool thing. Oh, it's not going. There we go. Whee! I don't know. I'm not someone who like has a lot of like moments where, you know, weird stuff happens. I had a funny time with my dad because I did construction with him one year. I think it was like I was like 17. Got the whole facility and stuff, just the time I spent with my dad. But basically, I worked with him, right? And oh, damn it, again. I'm pretty sure I just lost all that progress. It's just those fat boys. And I remember one time, I don't remember why we were talking about it, but we basically talked about ghosts. And he said he believed in ghosts, right? And it's so funny. Basically, one day he tells me like he believes in ghosts, right? And he gives like these somewhat personal anecdotes, and they're kind of weak in the sense of like, you know, how credible you can see it as, oh, this was a ghost encounter, because the one situation it was in with him like waking up and like seeing something, which isn't really, you know, very credible evidence, because a lot of times when you're fucking just woken up from sleep, you're not gonna have like the clearest memory, or even just like be able to easily differentiate between what is a dream and what is real. But what was funny about it was just the fact that his other anecdotes were basically along the lines of, oh yeah, I believe in ghosts. Why? Because when I was working in this building, I once had a ladder end up in a different place than where I put it, or at least where I thought I would have put it, or like where it should have been. So it very much felt like more like how would you say? It felt more like circumstantial sort of situation. Like you put it in a different place than you thought you would. Like you make some mistakes. What it says, I don't know. Like none of it screams, oh, a ghost moved my ladder. Another thing was like you had a coffee cup out of place. I know. Like you could see like how the top had moved, but even then it's like, it doesn't really say much. But what was interesting about it was, one day we got to the building, and we were there early in the morning, because my dad is this individual whose perspective of, you know, sort of how to handle work is basically more akin to this whole, if I go to work as early as possible, I can get the job done as early as possible, and thus I can get paid more money. So he has this really, you know, good work ethic. But for somebody who like never likes getting up in the morning to all of a sudden have to get up at 6 and then be at work by 7. It was exhausting decisions. Yeah. I'm gonna get everything. Okay. But basically, what happened was we got there. We got there really early, and most people wouldn't have already been at the building. We were basically the only people there. Now, I can't remember for sure if we were the only people there. I asked my dad, and he said we were. But basically, what happened was that we were. It was either the 4th or the 3rd floor. Not really too important, but basically, he asked me to go get the shopping cart, right? And the reason we had a shopping cart was, so either way leads. Okay. So basically, we got there before, everyone else. No, not really too big of a deal. But ultimately, what happened was kind of interesting. We're there before everyone else, right? Or presumably we are.
Let's see.
So we should be alone. And what happened was he asked me to go get the shopping cart. So I go over and I get the shopping cart from the 1st floor. The reason we needed a shopping cart was because gosh, shut up about ingredients. The reason we needed it was because we would put all the debris that we would get, and we would put it in the shopping cart, and then we just throw it out in this big old dumpster thing. So that's obviously what we did. So I went and got the thing for the 1st floor, right? And because of the fact that it'd be basically a massive pain in the ass to try and get it up through the stairs, I went to the elevator, and basically I went down to the 1st floor, and I clicked on the button to get the elevator down to the 1st floor. I didn't go down there because I don't like taking the elevator because it always feels like it's about to fucking drop. So basically, I'm waiting for the elevator, and then I hear from behind me what sounds like a sigh. It sounded like. Now, in my head, I just immediately thought it was my dad. I was just like, oh, it's my dad just went down here and was disappointed about something. I didn't really think too much about it because, why would I need to why would I need to think about it? So I go, I continue forward, I go up, and then to my shock, my dad's there. My dad is on the 3rd floor. He's not currently on the floor that I thought he was.
Yeah, and each one leads somewhere different.
Each one is somewhere different. I get there and I'm just like, wait a minute, you're not currently upstairs? That doesn't make any sense. So I basically just surmised that it's very likely that, I don't know, I heard a ghost, maybe. And it's mostly just because, this happened, after my dad told me, the place was, haunted. Because, normally I would have just simply, I wouldn't have even questioned anything about it. I would have just thought, oh, there's probably just somebody else in the building, no big deal. What big deal is there to make? Okay. I don't know. It was a weird thing. There probably was just somebody else there, but I guess it doesn't really matter too much. Yeah. I had a lot of interesting times with my dad. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about it more later on. I'm probably gonna call it tonight because it is late. It is now 5. I've been fucking doing this for almost an hour. So this has been a very, I would say, anticlimactic playthrough of Toy Story. And he just walks across the screen. That's great. I'm so tired. I'm gonna fucking pass out. I hope you enjoyed watching. And I'm gonna try and make another video soon, I guess. Other than that, I'm gonna go die. Bye.